All right, greetings all. I'm going to be doing a voiceover on this video because a lot of this stuff here, I want to make sure that it's very clear for the special viewers and they can get a deeper understanding as to what it is that I'm actually saying here. This is Occult Gnosis from God. And I suggest you pay close attention to this. I want you humans to take a little note of something, okay? When you look at certain things that the religious order tells you to follow, such as like man in Christ. Christ in man, man over woman, woman over children. You know, when I look at children are basically part of what we would consider no different than a pet, the animal kingdom. Leave the humanity aside. Leave all the uh, divinity and just leave the humanity out of it and look at it for what it is. When you have children, when they're young, okay, they're no different than a pet. All they do is shit, they eat, and that's it. And then you have to just look over them like you were looking over a pet. Give them a little time and attention. The only difference between this child and a pet is that it develops into something much bigger. Okay? Now, a child, when you look at a child is basically like a black hole. It's just absorbing its environment. It's absorbing its environment, which is when you look at it, you're basically God to them. Okay? Now, when you say God is the creator of the universe, the world is the creator of all. And the same way that a child has the potential to develop into something much bigger. Yet when you look at scientific studies, they say that a pig has the intelligence of a 6-year-old child, let's say. And that's because in comparison, they're very equal, right? But the potential that the child has is much greater. And look at you as a human right now, okay? You have the potential to be something much bigger than what you think you are. But I'm going to get into that in this video. It will be covered now. Things. Okay, you worship this God. Basically, you look at this thing as something bigger than you. When you have a child, okay, the child is going to look at you like God because you were the creator of all things for it until it decides to know more about the universe. Cheers. So, when you look at the child is going to look at you and trust you. And you as the God must be on your P's and Q's. Must be as honest as possible with this child. Never lie to this child. Treat this child as the future God. You see, there's the thing. I look at life as a chemistry. And I also look at movies as they give you a lot of information. Movies, music, a lot of lyrics you may listen to. Everything is information. Everything's telling you something. But I want you to look at this when it comes to movies. When you look at Star Wars and you got the Sith and you got the Jedis. Do you notice how in the Sith order, okay, and I'm going to tell you why I'm even bringing this up. Because it's going to come down to a lot of what I'm talking about when I say life is chemistry. When you look at the Sith order, you have a master. The master always has an apprentice. The apprentice usually wants to kill its master. That's the key. It's for the apprentice to get trained and good enough to kill its master. Now, here's the thing, though. The master knows that its body is getting weaker when it's killed by the apprentice. Do you think that it cannot live through that apprentice? It can absolutely live through that apprentice. But here's the thing, though. Because it got killed by the apprentice, it can actually directly become that. It's the same thing when you say you are what you eat becomes you as well. So check this out. There's a lot of parents who live vicariously through their children, even in this waking state. And what's funny is that when we look at our children, we are molding, shaping, and developing these children. Okay? Now, this child has a lot of potential, but you as the God of its world, you have a great responsibility. Now this child, for example, you know how I mentioned the Sith and the Jedis and whatnot, but the Sith, they basically are a master trains its apprentice, and eventually the apprentice ends up killing its master. The master ends up living now through that apprentice that it trained. See, the reason I mention this is because adults, or let's say parents, when they're not aware, how is it that when you die, you do not think that you would be actually living through your child to some extent if you are a direct frequency match? And why I say this is because you're subjecting yourself to being an individual and not all things. This is only because you're asleep. For example, when you go to sleep and you have dreams, the dreams are determined, and you will be in a scenario with people, places, and things depending on what was on your mind or what vibrational state you were in. And that's where you just appeared in the dream. It's not like you voluntarily went there, but you were never born. You can never die there. You just appeared there, and you believed it to be so true. So now, if you have your child and your child never came to or broke the generational curses, when you die and you're not aware, okay, you're not self-aware, you will just be a frequency match to the direct idea that you birthed into existence. So it is very important, okay, for you to raise your child accordingly and actually observe your child, especially in their youngest years, because they're basically as pure as possible, but they're a direct mirror of you. And if you're aware, this is basically like doing shadow work 101. You're observing you through your child. You observe you through your woman as well in the house. As the head of the household, they're all showing you something. And what they're showing you is exactly what you are. The things that may trigger you, the things that you may love, all those things are very important to point out. And when you're looking at these things, you are becoming more self-actualized, more self-aware, and you're letting your child actually be an individual. A lot of parents want to control their children, want to tell their kids what they want them to grow up to be. Find out what your kids actually really want. Find out what it is that they're into. Find out what their hidden gifts and talents are. If they make a mistake, guide them, but don't, and do it out of a loving space. Don't shut them down. Don't close them off. See, in schools, it's why I say everything is evil, because everything's inverted. I believe the kids, if anything, should be the instructors. The kids should be the one actually teaching. And the teachers should observe. But they're setting the structure for these kids to do this. Instead of sitting in single files like they do in jails and whatnot, or, you know, and it's all mind control, because even when you go to a police academy or you go to the military, you're still seated in the exact same way, in those tables, and the classroom set up a way where you're sitting and you're facing the instructor a certain way. Why is it that kids don't sit in round tables like you know, corporations do, like big businesses do? Right? Where everybody is equal, because you're sitting in a circle. Why is nobody ever sitting in a circle? You're sitting in classrooms in single file in a certain amount of space between each individual. It puts you in a direct frequency where it's kind of like a herd mentality, and you're putting your attention to that person in front of you. And they're teaching you inversion. They're not even really teaching you anything. So this is why I say that a child you're bringing into the world, that child becoming self-aware ends up breaking a generational curse, which I'm going to get into now in this conversation. You are basically a God here, and your body is the body of Christ. So you're basically enduring the sins of the world, but your body is also what's able to transmute all evil and all things into what you are, which is good. The world is evil. And if you're influenced by the world, then you're a weak sheep motherfucker. And let me explain why. Your kids are like animals. When you have a dog resembles its master, okay? The master and its dog or the cat or the bird or the fish or the whatever you fucking have as a pet, okay? You're the master. You're your kid's master up until a certain age where it matures and becomes its own individual being. But you are responsible for your child because your child is an idea, the same way you are an idea. And when you realize that you came into this world the same way your child came into this world, but you become realized and actualized, but you realize and break out of these negative programs, then you are breaking a generational curse in your family. Okay? This goes down in many different layers, even the medical industry. When they tell you that cancer runs in the family, diabetes runs in the family, you know what happens? When the child doesn't know any better, the child is going to believe this and it'll become conducive to this reality. I'm going to tell you why. Because it's going to eat the same shit you were doing, live the same lifestyle you were doing, and with that belief that the child has, it may manifest the same exact negative programs that it's going through that you went through. But when the child becomes smart enough to know that you're an idiot and you were eating garbage, you were listening to stupid shit, you were living a fucking stupid lifestyle, then the child breaks that generational curse. This is why they say health is wealth. Because you pass down generational wealth to your child as well. Okay? Now, when the child becomes aware of the negative programs, it changes its habits that you pass down to it. And then now it becomes a different individual and you break the generational curse. So you keep living in this life through this reincarnation wheel. When you have a child, you raise your child may be an adult who's basically lost at sea the same way you are if you never came self-actualized, because you are the light of the world. You are God. You know what I'm saying? You're the head of the household. You're the man of the house, the head of the table. You are the light of the world. You basically guide your woman in the household. Your woman is a representation of the feminine energy. Now, I just told you in the beginning of this video to leave all the humanity aside. So leave the gender aside, leave all that aside. Look at everything as energy, chemistry, frequency, and vibration. That's it. So the woman is basically a physical manifestation of feminine energy. The man is a physical manifestation of masculine energy. So now you being the god of the household, again, leave the humanity aside, because you're probably going to think that the head of the household or the man of the house is to pay the bills, go to work, fucking be, you know, and it's stupid. It's all backward shit. That's not what a man is. See, if you knew how to really be a man, the woman will never leave your fucking side. She will never fucking leave your side. And it's not even about dicking her fucking good. It's about being a real fucking man. The head of the household, the light of the world. See, the whole thing is that, and before I move on in there, let me explain. When it comes down to being the head of the household, okay, and the light of the world. See, I told you that the feminine energy, okay, I consider that more of the subconscious mind. And it's more or less like, you know, when you're watching a movie or having any type of experience, or even watching porn, let's say. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Your mind won't be able to tell the difference between a real or a fake experience. So it might become emotional. It might become entangled in that web or world. What is the conscious mind is the gatekeeper. The conscious mind becomes aware, uses that awareness, uses the common senses. And that's what we all have in common. Okay? And this is the thing. Once you're able to have that awareness, you're the gatekeeper. You know what goes in and out. You're also able to tell what the difference between a real or fake experience is. You're also able to control your breathing. Okay? So you're kind of directing traffic here. You're taking over the wheel. So a woman tends to be more emotional because they are a representation of the feminine energy in physical form. So they may take things a little bit more personal or emotional. That's why a man's role should be to, you know, manage his emotions. An overly emotional man is not really a man. It's It's really taken over by the feminine energy. And overall, I've made examples of how we look at this as the individual, how we look at this as just basically humanity and whatnot. So a man should be able to guide a woman out of her hell for that reason. Should be able to show her the light. Should be able to point these things out, but he has to be able to see this by seeing it in himself too. Because there is no separation. And I already said you're attracting who you are. You're with who you are. That's why if you're in a toxic relationship and you break up with that individual, if you don't change, you'll just attract another person in the same body. That's lack of self-awareness. That's the key, is to evolve. And that's why I said here, if you're not evolving, you're either degenerating or you just stay the same. Your woman will always get, you see, you attract what you are. You're always going to attract what you are. So when your woman is with you, you best believe you got a lot of her father's traits. And if she didn't have a father, it would have been potentially what her father's traits are. See, the whole thing is that even you as a man, you're marrying your mom. So whatever motherly figure you had growing up, you may lean toward marrying that woman. And I'm going to get into what marriage is in a second. But the whole thing is that once you break out of these negative programs and you change yourself as an individual, you will no longer marry your mom. You're going to marry a totally different person. You'll notice that when you're in a toxic relationship, you're only going to attract the same person in another body unless you change, because the world is how you are, not how you see it. Okay? So that's why you notice how women, you watch porn. Oh, daddy, fuck me, daddy. Yeah, daddy. Why do women call you daddy? Huh? Because they really are marrying your daddy. Now, here's the thing that's very important. If your dad was a toxic individual and he did stupid shit with your mom, then obviously you have to become aware of that. When you change, you'll attract a different man. However, when that God resides in you and it's dormant, but it wakens up, you'll attract the person that's going to show you the way in the form of a masculine energy, a real fucking man. Yeah, so you'll find the real father in that man that you attract, ladies. And this is what I'm talking about. Because the thing is that when we give ourselves to the religious order, and I'm going to talk about it when it comes to marriage and sex before marriage and whatnot, and how that's a degenerate in their eyes. We give ourselves to the church, and that's why we call these priests, we call them father, right? The priests are father, or whatever the fuck their name is. Father this, father that. And the government basically, if we're doing it the other way around, where we're marrying through the state, then we are just basically subservient to the state. We are getting married through the state, and that's you as a couple still being in feminine energy. When in actuality, when you marry each other, or basically know yourself and you have sex with that individual, and I'm going to get into people who have sex with multiple partners and whatnot, but you're basically supposed to be more resourceful and more self-sustaining, because that's a proper conducive chemistry. However, there's two ways to look at it, because people are batteries. They always tell you to be fruitful and multiply. See, that's why the religious order wants people married and having many, many children. Okay, but then they tell you that the man should always have custody of the woman, of the children, if, you know, the couple should ever break up and whatnot. But while they're together, the system is designed where the man has to be out working all day, because, I mean, inflation's happening. Cost of living keeps going up higher and higher and higher. Unless you know what you're doing and you can work for yourself, then that's a different story. But the majority aren't doing that. So who does the children spend the most time with? Their mom, at home with the children. When in actuality, if you look at it even in the animal kingdom, the lioness was the one that went out and hunted, and the male lion stayed with the cubs and protected the pride. Because if they went out hunting, their pride was vulnerable to being attacked, killed, and taken over. But we're doing it the inverted, the other way around. But this is a woman's world. Understand this. It's ran on negativity. That's why it caters to the female energy all the time. But people are so stupid. They start to form these movements on feminism and toxic masculinity, which I can make another completely whole video on that topic in and of itself. But we'll get into that. Continuing on. A man will basically guide you out of your hell with unconditional love. What is love? Because nobody knows what love is. Love is the glue that holds this reality together, right? But why is it holding this reality together? Because you are holding it together and collapsing everything into existence. When you fall apart, basically, like I'm talking about, fall apart in a way where your mind is so weak that life takes over you to some extent, then you may end up dying. And your world collapses right before your eyes. And this is where the glue that we call love breaks apart, the harmony. Why do I say it's the glue that holds everything together? I have a beautiful garden. See here? All this, all these are my trees. They're all in containers, but they're doing so beautiful. They got green vibrancy, the greatest vitality, right? But do you ever hear how people say you have a green thumb when you're a good gardener? So I basically manage my space from the heart space, right? So the heart is always present. The heart wants to be here and now. The intellect wants to rely on memory, wants to rely on future. But when you're in your heart space, you're in the present moment. So when I'm gardening and I'm walking my garden, the garden would be a reflection of me. And check this out. The same way I said that people's pets tend to resemble their master. Okay? But why is that? You're taking care of your pet from the heart space. This is why they say that when you care for animals and you care for, particularly certain animals like cats and whatnot, which are pretty spiritual animals, they say that these animals are good for the heart. But it's not because of what you're doing. There's a metaphysical thing happening here too. I mean, you're literally programming yourselves to know that you need to stay alive because something is taken care of by you. You're playing a God role and a motherly role and a masculine role at the same time. It's a great chemistry. When you look at the heart color is green, right? So we can look at that as a combination of the upper and lower realms. Because to make the color green, you need a combination of the blue that's right above the heart and the yellow that's below the heart. Okay? And when you look at even all the other colors of the chakra systems, they're all working with each other, but they need the assistance of the one above and below. And they're co-governed by organs. And they're co-organs for that reason, because they all work in harmony. Then you become a total universe, one song coming out. You're not isolating chemistry where you're thinking from an isolated space. Continuing on. Because I'm in my heart space, the heart chakra is green. And I'm putting my energy and passion into it, where I'm in literally a meditative state. I am basically one with these plants to the point where I don't even have to do research. I know what's going on with the environment just by looking at it. Because I'm collapsing it into existence. We're talking about quantum science here. Okay? Now, everything is held together with this glue, this beautiful harmony. Because God is walking the garden. And when I'm walking the garden as God, what is God? Because nobody knows what God is either. See, God is the authority, is the leadership, the head of the household of your life. See, somebody could tell you something, and if you believe it, you have a weak mind. It was infiltrated. You believe that outside individual, which is basically not even a real person. You collapse that person into existence. It's a shadow aspect of yourself, a mirror or a version of yourself. And depending on how this individual makes you feel, you'll know if it's favorable or unfavorable. It's the same way like a dream. That's why people say merrily, 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 life is but a dream. When you have a dream and you have people, places, and things in there, it don't matter who the fuck was in those dreams. You could dream of anybody you want, any movie star, any person you know. Think about how they made you feel in that dream. But your state of being will determine the people that even appear in the dream. So if you're in a low vibrational state, you may see somebody that doesn't really sit well with you in your dream. And your dream will revolve around scenario, situations that may make you feel a certain way. So the important thing in the dream is not who's in it, the people, places, or things. It's how you feel. But you'll notice though, that when you become aware, not thinking, but just aware, and you change your feeling, and you decide, because it's all about a choice. You have free will. You decide to feel higher vibration. Like I said, in the dream, it's the same way in this life. You've heard it from people. You change, your world changes. You don't have to forcefully kick anybody out of your life or, change creation. Creation's already created. You can only shape your circumstances, but that can only happen when you change yourself first. So if you decide to feel different, because feeling is the key, feeling is conscious awareness of vibration. So when you change the way you feel, because you're changing your perception about how you see things, because you're changing your point of view, okay, then your world starts to change. And it's all determined by you. You'll notice that these people disappear in the dream. They'll actually even morph into somebody who actually sits well with you in the dream, or in this waking state that we're in, which is basically not even the real waking state. Because if you look at it, when you die and they go to your funeral, they say, oh, we're going to go to your wake, right? Oh, we're going to go to the wake. Why is it called a wake, right? It's just like when you wake up in the morning, they say good morning, as if you're mourning something, grand rising, greetings, all these words. Nothing is done by choice. And I'm going to get into that when it comes to admiralty law and all that fly shit. How words are not chosen by accident, and what marriage actually is. I didn't forget about that. I'm going to get into that now. But check this out. Animals. You have your root chakra. That's your lower animalistic nature. So every animal in existence that you know of and see is a mirror of your root chakra. Okay? And I've made many videos on this, which I suggest you go watch when it comes down to the animal kingdom. I've had to spay and neuter these cats because their demeanor, everything is so much different. I mean, it's a lot of it's a less desirable situation to be around cats that are not spayed and neutered. But when they're spayed and neutered, it's a fucking charm. It's a gem. But you know what the difference is? You're not going to go and fucking spay and neuter yourself, are you? You're not going to fucking cut your genitals off. Because you have higher faculties over the rest of the animal kingdom, right? So if you are taken over by your animalistic nature, then in this realm, you'll be treated like an animal. You'll be put in a jail cell. You'll be told when to go out, when to eat, when to wake up and go to bed. You won't even be your individual person. You'll be a number. That's all you are. So you'll get treated like an animal. Okay? So now, here's the thing. When you have control and authority over your roots, which is your animalistic nature, that's the female energy as well, you're going to attract the right female energy. And that female energy is going to be your root system. You basically will be out in the world and absorbing and collecting all these lights and taking it in as nutrients, which is what we would consider the sun. But the sun is nothing exterior to you, like if you were a tree, giving you any kind of energy. Understand that because you're a human and you're evolved beyond the tree, you have higher faculties. You're basically looking at the exact mirror image of yourself. This is why in the Bible they say that you have higher faculties over the rest of the animal kingdom. You have dominion over the rest of the other planet, of everything else in the planet. Animal, the fish, whatever it may be, you have dominion over all these things. Okay? But you still are all these things. Understand, the trees, the birds, the animals, they're all a mirror image of you. Okay? This is why when you eat certain foods like animal products and you're not aware, you may feel a certain way, because energy, they teach you this in elementary school, energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transferred or transmuted. So if you eat a lot of animal products and you find yourself feeling depressed, heavy feeling and all that, understand that you're just eating this energy, but you're unaware. You're like a zombie just eating energy. But when you're able to transmute this energy, which is why the concept of prayer even started, then this is where you start to become more of an aware, conscious God here in the planet. You'll start to know that you're in the world, but not of it. See, this is the thing. You eat so many different foods, because back then, if we hunted an animal, that's why we prayed over that animal, because we knew we were going to eat that one animal. But we're eating so many different animals. And not only that, but when you eat an animal product from the supermarket, it's mixed with all different types of blood just to keep it red. So you're eating different types of animals, even though you think you're eating only one animal. This is why you start to have a brain chatter. You start to think that because you have an internal dialogue or monologue that you're more advanced than anybody else, and it's not. You just have a lot of, it's called mental activity, but it's not really an actual thought, a logical thought, okay? It's just basically all thoughts are a lie, because everything outside of you is the lie. The only truth is you. So when you're able to come out with a certain logical thought from within yourself, because again, what you're eating, okay, you are basically receiving it like if you were a tree receiving energy and information from the sun, and is bringing it down to the root system. And in kind, that root system, with the connection of the mycelium network that's underneath, is feeding the tree from underneath, because what's underneath cannot live above ground, and what's above ground cannot live underground. But it has to work in symbiosis, a symbiotic relationship. This is where it truly becomes one. So when you're a human and you are actualized and enlightened, you'll know that this is the way that you are the one. And here's the thing though, everything outside of you is sexualized and designed to get a reaction out of you, trigger you, right? So you're taking this information, okay? You're receiving it, and it's traveling down to the root system, which is where your animalistic nature is. And when your root system is not balanced, that's why you react animalistic. This is why you react extra lustful. This is why you tend to be out of balance or not grounded properly, because your roots are weak. So this is very important to know, that you are receiving information. When you're listening to something, you're eating. When you're breathing, you're eating. When you're eating anything, you're eating. Sometimes when you listen to things, how does certain things sit with you, right? It's an instant reaction. But when you're looking at something else, as far as like what you're eating, it takes time to process. So you kind of don't pay attention to how you're feeling. But you'll take it as something that is just happening to you. And then you'll take your faith and put it on exterior sources, such as like the medical industry. They drug you further. And once I said, feeling is conscious awareness of vibration. You're able to utilize these things as tools. You could transmute these things, because these lower vibrational feelings are actually a strong power source if you know how to transmute or be a proper alchemist. Like, be able to change this energy to your advantage. Like anger, for example. Anger, channeled properly, can be very useful. But if it's not channeled and it's taken over because you're in your woman nature, and again, it's not gender, then you tend to use this anger and destroy. And this is not conducive to your life. Now, I made the example, there's two ways to be conducive. You could be conducive to live a harmonious life, but you could also be conducive where conservatives want you to live a certain way so that you continue to entertain the matrix. All the systems are energized by your attention and your participation. Moving on. Because you motherfuckers talking about enlightenment, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And if you want to debate me, I will debate you. And trust me, you will not win that debate. Because I could tell you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You don't. And here's the thing, when I see you, you are a mirror aspect of myself. But all you are is a mirror aspect of my ego, which is evil, but not in the religious state that you're talking about when it comes down to bad or good. My ego, everything I see outside of me is a manifestation of my ego trying to keep me from knowing the truth, because it wants to stay in charge of itself in this reality. But when you are in charge of the ego, okay, or at least governing your ego, and you're managing your ego accordingly, then this is God. God is authority. See, you have the God of the air, the God of the water, the God of the high seas, the God of the land, right? But when you're sovereign, here's the thing though. They say that, you ever have, because I've heard this before, when I take my son to school, they say the law of the land. But that's the law of the land for this individual being that's walking on this planet, right? But the law of the high seas, right? And even beyond that, it's still overcoming humanity. This is a woman's world. And the reason it's a woman's world is why you see that the court systems favor women, why everything is catered around women, yet women want to somehow fight for equality as if they're not fucking like, catered to here. Man is actually very benevolent to women here, right? But when you look at it, for example, I'm walking this planet, and this planet is a feminine planet. And it's a dark planet because feminine energy is dark. It's negative. Negativity is attractive. That's why people are attracted to drama. But here's the thing though, it's a paradox. Because that negative energy can also be very nurturing, very attractive energy. And when you want to manifest things in life here, you need to have that negative energy. So we would consider that a necessary evil. Because people say that, oh, you have to be positive and, reject evil and whatnot. They're polarizing to an idea where they're saying that you must be this, but you can't serve two masters. See, here's the thing. When it comes down to it, at the end of the day, okay, I'm using both sides as a chemistry. The same way if I was plugging a fucking electrical plug into an electrical outlet on the wall, I'm going to get power to my appliance. You are basically putting your feet, the soles of your feet, all right? And before I even jump into that, when you do plug the power source to the wall and you get power to the appliance, some people are walking around with a weak nervous system. And again, this is due to imbalances in the liver and kidneys. You may be holding on to a lot of anger or fear, and this impairs your autonomic nervous system, and it impairs all the electrical systems of the body. So this is equivalent to if you have a home and you have an appliance and you plug it to the wall and you're getting no power, but yet you have a perfectly working, functioning, well-connected appliance, but you're still not getting juice. It could be that there could be a breaker out on the circuit box, right? So when that breaker is off, why did that breaker shut off? There might have been a trip or a short or something like that in the electrical system. So you could have perfectly working appliances in your body, such as your pancreas. And I'll give you an example. Let's say you're not producing insulin properly, or your pancreas appears to not be working properly. But then again, they start giving you medications as if you were a diabetic. But if you really was to look a lot deeper, some people that's not even the real problem. The problem could be that they have a problem in the nervous system of the pancreas. No different than you having a short in the breaker box and is just replacing the fuse, and now you would have power working properly to that appliance. But instead, some people they medicate themselves, and it's no different than you messing up the organ that is functioning properly. It's just that there was a problem with the electrical system. So here it comes that the body is the same way. Cater to your nervous system before anything else. Because a lot of people unknowingly are holding on to these negative emotions in certain organs. And these organs are like brains. These energy centers that are co-governing these organs are brains. So like, for example, you have your root chakra. That's basically your reproductive area, your gonads, your lower animalistic nature. That's a brain, right? You ever hear some people say, hey man, that I was thinking from my little head down there, and that's how I got this girl pregnant, because it basically took the wheel and overrode the higher faculties that you have over the rest of the animal kingdom. You basically acted on your animalistic nature. Some people have gut feelings. There's neurons in your stomach, but this gut has to be connected to the brain to intellectualize it here and logically put it into practice here in this realm. That's using masculine energy, logical thinking. Same thing with the heart. Some people say think from the heart space, or the heart wants to be present. The heart is a separate brain there in and of itself. But don't forget, all these brains and even the throat, some people, they have a blocked throat chakra. They can't express themselves. And this is due to childhood traumas. But the throat has to be working in harmony with the heart and brain coherence. So that when you're speaking from a benevolent, logical space. Because if not, then why do people say you're talking out of your ass? It's because you're in your lower animalistic nature, in your lower centers, and that's basically coming out in the form of words, and you're casting spells on everybody else. Because words are spells. That's why you spell words with letters. No accident, the word soul is there, right? You attract these negative ions from the ground, which is basically what we would consider electrons. We would consider an alkaline energy, right? And then you give off positive ions, more of the inflammatory shit that doesn't serve you. But positivity also can be very well put to influence the, let's call the harmony or the glue that holds everything together, like love, or the masculine energy, right? Positive energy. But that can also be very toxic because it's very acidic. But acidity, you also really look at this, it's also the building blocks of life, because we're a protein. And what are proteins broken down to? Amino acids. But it always needs the chemistry of the negative or alkaline energy to balance and keep it alive. Because without it, instead of it being building blocks only, it becomes degenerative. Why do you think when you go to the gym, you're making your muscles stronger, right? But what happens? You're developing lactic acid. You're breaking shit down. But what does your body do to basically balance things out by default? It forces you to breathe harder, right? Why is that? Because air, or the breath you're intaking, is alkalizing. So you're neutralizing lactic acid. Okay? That's why they say that for you to detox the body, you have to breathe properly. Breathing exercises, you're strengthening something up. It's an exercise, but people neglect that part, right? They don't even breathe properly through workouts or through martial arts or whatnot. And you know what? At the end of the day, life is an art. Life is full of stresses and obstacles and trials and tribulations. But when you're in control, when you know how to breathe properly, you can overcome all these obstacles because you are how you breathe. If you're breathing properly, you change the frequency, the chemistry, the vibration, and you change your way of being. You change your state of being, your mental state. You notice how when you're panicking, you're frantic. What do people say? Bro, calm down. Just breathe, breathe. Why do they say that? Because you're letting the body know that it's okay. Again, the body doesn't know the difference between a real or fake experience. This is the body of Christ, but it is also the body of the church. And the head is the masculine energy. And this holds a lot of treasure. Moving on. Where you're at now is determined by your mental state. Your state of being determines what state you're even in the planet. Country, contra. That's where that word comes from. Country comes from the word contra. Contra means against. Now, when you look at that, for example, you can also look at citizen. All right? Now, when you look at a citizen of the state, okay? You have a city in the state that you're in. El estado, la ciudad. It's still masculine and feminine. So you're a citizen of the state. You are actually the city, state, and country. And to tell you right now, you're in the richest just give it a second. country on the planet right now. And here's the thing. If you're born in America, it's because that's the vibratory and mental state you were in, or you created your parents to be in for you to be born in. So if you're born in America, you're born in the richest country on the planet, but it's because you are basically the richest country on the planet. Again, you will appear depending on the vibratory and mental state you, your parents, which are all one, were in. You created your parents. I'll make another video on this. But it's like a dream. I just told you, whatever state you're in, that's the state that you will appear in the dream. Did you voluntarily say, I want to be born in America, or I want to be born in the UK, or I want to be born in India? You just born there. So wherever you're at, right? And let's say if you were born in a poor country and you become aware and you know how to manipulate these energies to your advantage, you will end up becoming a citizen of the richest country on the planet. It all goes to show why sometimes we create borders and separation between things. And there's ways around the system. I don't want to make this video on just that topic. I'm going to make a separate video on that. But you are basically sitting in your throne right now. That's your body. The fact that you could sit on a chair. Okay? Because that's where the word throne comes from, the word thronos, a chair. And they say you sitting at the throne of your kingdom. That's happening right now. You're in the richest country on the planet. So right now, as you sit in your body, you are a maritime admiralty product. What's up, babe? Venga. You're a maritime admiralty product. When you come through the mother's womb, you're moving through the birth canal. You're birthed into the birth canal, and your certificate is signed by the dock. No different than a ship. I love you too. Venga. No different than a ship getting birthed at the dock, and it needs a certificate of manifestation. You can look at the works of Jordan Maxwell. I want to introduce my beautiful feminine energy over here.
Hi, how are you?
I'm just making a quick video, okay?
I love you.
So you're a vessel, and your organs, your blood, you are basically sitting on the richest country on the planet. And I'm not talking about the actual country, I'm talking about you. You are on top of a land. But all these things that we separated into categories is a human thing. Okay? Marriage. You know how they tell you in religion, no sex before marriage? Marriage is actually sex. That's actually the marriage, is sex. Marriage, if you look at the word marriage, is just like you hear maritime or marina. Marina is a body of water. So when you are plugging yourself into the woman, okay, you're literally, and this is literally plugging yourself into the matrix. When you're plugging yourself into the woman. But the ritual is to basically plug yourself through the process or ritual of marriage first, through the system of the state or the church. Marrying that woman. And if you have sex with a lot of women, then you're marrying multiple wives. You criticize whether you say you're a polygamy or whatever all these other words you call them are for, people who have multiple partners. If you've slept with multiple partners, then you have multiple wives. Okay? But the whole thing is this. You don't get tied by your past if you've had that kind of past. Because if you're in your heart space, your heart wants to be in the now. Yesterday doesn't exist. Tomorrow is only determined by what you're doing now anyway. But this cannot be an egotistical, analysis. You have to really, really know this thing and realize it. And when you know that, you do better moving forward. So when you know better, you do better. Because again, it's going to be more of like where you're responsible for your actions moving forward. Now, a child, for example, when you bring a child into the world, you're an idea. You know why I say you're an idea? Because you are an idea based on what idea you have of yourself. I mean, some people may say, I'm a vegan activist, I am a YouTuber, I am a police officer, I am this, I am that. And that I am, okay, is basically what, and all those things are so easily destroyed. Because whatever idea you have of yourself, let's say you are a vegan activist and you debate someone and they destroy your ideas that make you that vegan activist, they literally destroy you because you identified as that with the I am a vegan activist. I am a police officer. I am this. I am that. You know what when they tell you in religion to be saved by Christ is to have everlasting life. This is what I was going to get to in the beginning, but this is basically the whole entire repetitive loop that I keep talking about. You don't break out of humanity because you end up living through your children. Especially when there's attachment. You'll end up living through your children. If your children don't become self-actualized and aware, you will die. They'll have children. The whole thing keeps repeating itself over and over again. This is why they say if you have certain addictions, if you have certain desires, if you have certain things that you have to work through, they're basically passed down by your ancestors. It's because your ancestors, they reside in these cells that you have in your body. This is the reason why if you're not aware or if you're not able to overcome humanity to some extent, everlasting life, you'll just keep reincarnating through the body of Christ. And the body of Christ is what you have now. But when you die, this body dies, then you will just basically reincarnate into your son or your daughter's body of Christ. And the same repetitive cycles keep going over and over and over again. This is why the inner work is important. You are claiming to be, which is nothing but an illusion. And beyond that layer, you're not even human because you'll come out and say, I am human. Okay? But you turn around and say, my body hurts. My arm hurts. But you'll turn around and say, I am sick. Instead of saying, my body feels sick. See, all these words are sort of entrapping. This is why when you look at the words of Jordan Maxwell, he'll tell you that words are words, but they can also be swords. When you add the S in front of the word sword. In front of the word word. Okay? So, and words are also spells. Now, I saw this YouTuber talking to this witch. I think she was, practicing magic to some extent. But he gave her an example saying, well, what about the forecast and whatnot? It wasn't forecast. He basically said, are you able to manipulate the weather then? And if the weather that you manipulated ended up, let's say it was supposed to rain, but she ended up doing magic for it not to rain. And then it killed all the crops. Or let's say a spell that she created a natural disaster of a storm and it ended up destroying that person's property. Is that person now responsible for, that did magic, is that person responsible for the damages that person has endured because of that? You see, here's the thing though. When the news gives you, and the TV, the news gives you the forecast. Notice how it's called a forecast? The whole thing is that when you watch the news, a lot of people are watching it. They take that as truth. So if they say it's going to rain in 3 days, you are literally creating that day to be a rainy day. Because it's teamwork makes a dream work. So you're already doing this as a collective. It has more power when everybody's doing it than if it was just one person manipulating the weather. So, yeah, you're already doing this. That's why it's called a forecast. You're casting a spell. But they promote it to you. You buy into it. And then this is how it works. This is how it's done everywhere with social media. This is how it's done with TV shows and whatnot. And speaking of social media, I know that before And earlier in this video, I said that the lioness would go out to hunt while the male stays back and protects the pride and protects the cubs. If not, they're vulnerable for attack. One would say, well, we're human and we don't have to go through things like that. But it's in an evolved form now. Because women are very, very influenced by something called social media, the news, friends and family that are all toxic to some extent. And don't forget, you're always going to know. And the reason you'll know is because you know yourself. You're more or less always going to know who you're with and who's around based on you knowing yourself and what your potentials are. I got into a very interesting conversation with my girl, and we actually did a video together that I'm going to be posting. Moving on. And, telling the weather. The thing is that when you look at it from the deepest root of shit, we're creating our reality as far as teamwork makes the dream work, even when we look at the news. When we look at the news and they give you a forecast saying that it's going to rain on a specific day, because everybody saw that forecast and took it as truth, it will manifest as a rainy day on that day. But we actually have more control of the weather than you actually think. You know what I'm saying? I didn't even realize I already said that. Now, I'm going to post this video, but I'm going to make a live stream. And I want to actually get into the live stream and know what your thoughts are. And I want to know what you're defining the word God to be. Life, love, evil, and good. Very important to know these things. And when I say know these things, I'm talking about know these things, not think you know them, not knowledgeably, intellectually know them outside of you and then you regurgitate them. I'm talking about taking it in, right? Processing it and extracting something out of it, like nutrients, right?
What did you get out of it?
The trees take in the information and the nutrients from the sun and bring that to the root system. When you want to manifest something in reality, your woman is like the container. You just have to keep, she's your root system, but you got to keep the soil moist, healthy, because you're a proper gardener. You got a green thumb. And with this, you'll have a green thumb with money, not just with plants, because you say you have a green thumb because plants are green, right? I love you. But money you count like this, don't you? I'm going to cut this video here. I don't want to make it way too fucking long. And here's the thing, relationships, right? I'm going to make another video on this. But in a nutshell about relationships, all right? You notice how the word relate is in there? And then you may even have relatives that you're related to. See, these are people that they're not even really your family. They're just related to you. Again, the way you were born is by your mind state, mental state and whatnot. So these people were just swimming in these same exact waters that you were when you got here. But they're all mirrors of you. Family, friends, the ones that trigger you, direct mirrors. And I'm very aware of the ones that trigger me the most. But I've got those managed accordingly. No different than managing cancerous cells in the body. And then when you're saying related, relationships, okay? You're working on something and you have a common goal in mind. We all have common senses. We're all related. But again, this goes down into layers as far as to you marrying your mother and the girl being attracted to toxic dudes that may have resembled her toxic father. But if she was to actually wake up that dormant God within her, the real God will appear in her life. I promise you that. And when that space is fulfilled, the woman will never leave. There's a lot of guys worried about their women leaving or looking at the flaws in each other and whatnot. Trust me, when you know you have stable roots, you ain't going anywhere. And it's not by force. There's a certain harmony that holds everything together. This is the glue that I call love. True love. Not the love you're taught in movies. But I'm going to be covering other things in future videos. But I also want to make a live stream because I want to hear whose thoughts are on this and whatnot. But here's another thing I want to add in here before I cut this video off, because I want to actually make sure that you have some type of substance when you tune into the live stream. When you have a wife, okay, it's called an esposa in Spanish. Esposa is handcuffs, okay? See, here's the thing. They give you this illusion that you have to get, because everything is a manifestation of the metaphysical. So when you get married by the church or the state or whatever it may be, or the courts, understand that this is nothing but a manifestation of the metaphysical state of you, the real you. So being married, that's why they say you have to get married and then have sex. Because the moment you prioritize having sex first, you're considered a degenerate. But only because you're not complying to the system. And the system is a lie. See, once you get married, then now you're at the mercy of the government. And they're in your life. And this is nothing more than you basically looking at this system as a manifestation of your ego being in the forefront of what you are as an actual God. So you'll put the church. Why do you think churches have priests and you call them Father this, Father Vernon, Father whatever the fuck his name is? Why are we calling them Father? Because you neglect your actual biological father as your father, and you also neglect your husband as the father of the household. And you'll only call him daddy in the bedroom from a lustful animalistic state. See, I want to get deeper into these videos, but I got to take notes because it's a lot to speak on, and I want to make sure that it's structured a certain way where, and I'd rather even talk to people, to be honest with you. This is why I like talking to people, because it's a lot better to see where the mentalities are at, where the programs are at, based on what they answer. Black don't crack. Anyway, I'm going to leave it here. Like, share, subscribe, and we will talk soon.